one wire, 2 poles and bidirectional gain on 10 metres. Keep watching and find out how you can build this bidirectional gain antenna. On my way to try another End Fed Zig Zag antenna. Whereas my previous video had it running on 15 metres, this time I'll try it on 10 metres. I've got the same length of wire, about 22 metres end to end, but this time it will be 4 half wavelength sections instead of 3. Just as a rule of thumb, I'm going to have 2 poles again supporting the wire, and it needs to be about 2/3 wavelength separate, so it will be about 7 metres or so apart for 10 metres. You can probably just see the bay and the hills behind them, just in the background. That's the location I'm going to. The benefit of that is that the bay faces north, which is just right for making contacts into Japan, which is the aim of this operating. It's also a park that I can activate as well. Most of the contacts will probably be on FT8, but I might try CW or even SSB, depending on conditions. The previous evening has been quite dramatic in relation to conditions. A lot of auroral activity. HF bands were pretty dead. Those 6 metres had a huge opening into Europe last night. Quite a few people in Australia made contacts across. I didn't, but I heard stations from Europe, which I've never done before on 6 metres. So, bit of a gamble, as conditions may not have recovered. But anyway, I've got this good antenna, it's got a bit of gain, bidirectional, and I'm at a location where the water favours Japan, almost due north. I've got 2 antenna couplers with me. This is the one I most commonly use, NL match. The lowest inductance is 1 microhenry, which is sometimes too high for 28 megahertz. It works fine for 7 through to 24. So I've got this other coupler, which I've described previously in another video. Anyway, this has a smaller value of inductance, so this is suitable for 28 and even 50 megahertz. So I've just got 2 inductor levels that I select just with this switch that switches part of it in and out. To mount the pole into the sand, just got some Velcro, some angle aluminium, and just in here I've got a mallet that sometimes the sand is a little bit tough, can't always do it just with my hand, so always handy to bring a plastic mallet, not too heavy either. These poles are longer than they need to be. Because of all the zigzags, I don't need much of a height. I only need about 4 metres or so, so most of the sections will be in and retracted. Just in case you didn't see my earlier video on the End Fed Zig Zag for 15 metres, and I really recommend you do, that one was based on basically this. So had the transceiver at this end, half wavelength up here, that was the first pole, another half wavelength here, that was down near the ground. It helped if you had a peg and a bit of string to help keep it low, and then the last of it was up to a second pole. So it required 2 vertical poles, and this section was about 7 metres, another 7 metres, another 7 metres. So half wavelength per section, and the poles are separated by about 10 metres, or about 2/3 of a wavelength. And that gave you broadside gain to the wire in a figure 8 pattern. So that was for 21 megahertz, using the same length of wire as I do for other end fed antennas. Like if I was to use this on 14 megahertz with a broadside pattern, I would just have something like this. So again, the same 22 meters or so of wire, half wavelength going up here. In this case, it's about 11 meters. There's your pole. Only needs a single pole for this one, and then back down. And that gives a radiation pattern, again, figure 8, bit of gain, it's a full wavelength. And when you compare it to something like a half square like that, which is quarter wavelength, half wavelength across there, another quarter wavelength down there. The thing is, with the half square, that requires 2 poles, whereas this arrangement just requires 1 pole. The half square has, I think, a little bit more of a null off where it's not meant to radiate, so it's a little bit more directional, slightly more gain, but the difference is very small. It's less than 1 dB, so if you're operating portable, and it's much easier usually to take 1 pole than 2. The only thing is that it's desirable that the single pole is a bit taller, because these ones only need to be about 6 meters, because if we're talking about 14 megahertz, there's a half square, then that's a quarter wavelength up here, so that's about 5 meters or so. Good idea to have it about a meter or so off the ground there. So that's the advantage of a end fed inverted V like this. Again, a full wavelength of wire, very similar gain to the half square on 14 megahertz. But that's off the topic of today's video, because we were dealing with 14 megahertz there, 21 megahertz here, but today we're interested in 28 megahertz. So we have the same wire, 21 or 22 meters, and remember the rule, half wavelength per section. And because we've got the same length wire, we've got a shorter wavelength, so we need more zigs and zags. But when we compare 28 megahertz, which is this one, versus 21 megahertz here, we still just need the 2 poles. In this case, the poles are about 7 meters apart. So same rule as before, 2/3 of a wavelength separate between the poles, except the last end needs to be anchored somehow down to near the ground, and then just at this end is your transceiver end. And again, a broadside radiation pattern and a bit of gain. And you'd probably get similar characteristics on 24 megahertz, certainly very similar on 27 megahertz. If you wanted to, I think this would be a really interesting antenna to try 27 megahertz. If you are wanting to make contacts in that direction, then an antenna like this, quite near the water, would give you a good and reasonably narrow lobe in this direction. And for that matter, it being bidirectional, it would also give you a lobe that way, which may or may not be what you want. It may pick up interference from houses. You may need to do things like reflectors possibly, but then that requires a lot more poles and is probably not worth the trouble in most cases. So what we're going to do, we're going to set up a zigzag end fed with these 2 poles. You've got the wire there, shouldn't take too long to set up, and we'll be on the air. Luckily it's pretty quiet, it's in the middle of the day, there's some pipes here, so I should be able to get away with setting this up along the beach, and it won't get into the way of too many people here. If it was a weekend in summer, it might be a bit different. That's your marker for about where I'd have the end of the wire. I'll just have the hole there, I'll just put an X there. And the other pole is probably about there. And the transceiver end, yeah, I'll just have that there. So I'll just move the rig down here. Because I've got an even number of sections, we'll just measure this out. So we're just doubling the wire on itself. So we're just folding it about there. So we know that the middle point is going to be about here. The middle point will be here, so it will be just slightly off the ground. Fill this bag with sand. I'll just tie it onto the middle of the wire, so that should provide a reasonable support. That can now go to the spot between the two masts. As it happens, this middle is close to the middle that I estimated, which I had this, which is a piece of chopping board, a couple of wires and another hole. I'll move this along the wire. That can then be fastened or be put over the centre section of the mast down at the far end. As to where it should go, I'm again doubling the wire on itself, so it will go just there, halfway, or in fact 3/4 away from the start of the wire. So you've got the poles at 1/4 and 3/4. One pole up, another to go. This time I'll try a rubber band for the wire mount, and I'll just tie it to some wires I've got tied to the top of this pole. Antenna's now up. Let's now connect the transceiver to see if I get any contacts. Oh, there we are, 1-to-1 VSWR on 10 metres. VK4 RST beacon. There's another beacon. Brisbane, think it's VK4 LA. VK3 Yankee Echo Portable, calling CQ and listening.
VK3YE Portable, VK3CT. You're definitely readable and you're definitely audible. Signal strength isn't great.
You just saw the SSB and CW contacts on 10 metres. I then went to FT8 and made a huge number of contacts, mostly 10 metres. That's where I started. Then had really good results, mainly Japan. Then 12 metres, similar, Japan and China. Good number on 12 metres, couple on 17. This antenna is certainly not designed for 6 metres, and I suspect its radiation pattern would be very poor. Although on the plus side, the location would be fantastic for 6 metres, with JA just over there. Let's have a tune around 6 metres during this massive opening to JA. There's where all the activity is, FT8. There's a beacon there. VK4 RSC.
Contact. Other Japanese station calling the same time, do not repeat it wrong. 73, good day, Xing. Victor Kilo 3 Echo Yankee, Juliet Hotel, 1 Papa X-Ray Hotel. Sayonara, thank you. Yes, I know. Thanks for calling. All events from Australia. Goodbye. Juliet Alpha 7 Oscar Delta Yankee.
JA2 IGY beacon.
So hopefully it'll have a return performance to
Kilo 4 Oscar Tango Zulu. Victor Kilo 4 Ocean Tango Zulu. Calling CQ. Victor Kilo 4 Oscar Tango Zulu. QRZ. Cool.
go put 4 stitches in and he ended up putting another.
It's clear.
Yeah, VK4 Charlie Baker.
All opening on the east coast so far. So I certainly hope it's stuck.
The floor of the shack. I don't know what.
Look at this SWR. Terrible. Probably 3 or 4 to 1. Yet, with this antenna, I'm still working a heap of JAs with FT8 on 6 metres. And I could have had a lot more FT8 contacts, but I thought, well, with conditions so good, I'll try for some CW and SSB. JA7 ODY. This is 10 metres. The vast majority of stations that received my signal, and indeed the contacts that I had, were in China or Japan. 12 metres was fairly similar but more concentrated in East Asia, China and Japan. Not much locally. 6 metres, the unexpected one, was even more concentrated. Huge numbers of stations in Japan received my signal. Also a good number in southeast Queensland, and also, as a bonus, Hawaii. So that's it, hugely successful. 10 metres and 12 metres, and also unexpectedly 6 metres. I think it's got a lot of promise. If you build one of these, then let me know how you go in the comments. I'd love to read them. Enjoy these videos? Want to start in amateur radio? Well, check out my books, Ham Radio Get Started for USA readers, and the Australian Ham Radio Handbook for those in Australia. For more information, visit my website VK3YE.com or search their titles on Amazon.